Every week, it just seems like there's less time, there's less space. There's so many things vying for our attention all the time. So hopefully tonight we can find a way to kind of set it aside a little bit and remember that we deserve to rest. We do. Hello. I'll go ahead and get started. Hello. My name is Shannon. My pronouns are they, them. If you are new here today, welcome. If you have been here many times before, welcome. I teach accessible yoga for everyone, but I generally center on fat folks, disabled folks, queer folks, neurodivergent folks. And I moved my classes to YouTube because, given the state of the world, I wanted to make sure that the practices were completely accessible to anyone who needed them. And so that's why everything's there. Feel free to subscribe if you aren't already. You'll get alerts when I post new classes. But pretty much as many Sundays as I can at 9 Eastern, we will have a live restorative class for the foreseeable future. Hi, Miriam. I'm so glad you're here too. So today, we have a restorative yoga class. We'll be using some props if we have them accessible. If not, don't worry. We can manage without as well. But we're really focusing on rest. And for me, a lot of that means trying to let go of the things that I don't have to hold on to. It might mean something completely different for you, but just so you understand where I'm coming from as I teach. Our props, if you have yoga props, we'll use a couple blocks. If you don't have blocks, don't worry. A couple throw pillows work really well for all the things we would use this for in our class. A couple blankets are always handy. Yeah, and a bolster if you have a bolster, which is, I'm sitting on it right now. But if you don't have a bolster, a couple bed pillows work just as well. So we generally start with a grounding, and we'll do that tonight as well. So we'll find a comfortable position. We can be reclined if we would like to be reclined. We can be seated if we prefer. If we're reclined, we might lie on our backs, maybe with a bolster or a couple bed pillows or a blanket underneath the knees, just to make things nice and soft for us. You can practice on the mat. You can also practice in bed. If you prefer to be in a chair or on a couch, you can do that too. I'll offer variations for folks who need them in those positions as well. So I'm going to stay seated so it's easier for you to hear me. But if you're reclined, you can also cover yourselves with a blanket. If you're in a chair or on the couch, you might find any comfortable position that feels good. We can lean back against the back of the couch. Because I have a larger belly, I like to sit in this butterfly position with my feet together, knees apart, because it gives me lots of space for the belly. And if you can raise the hips, sometimes that makes it even more comfortable. So you can sit on your bolster, you can sit on blankets or pillows, anything that feels good. And we'll take a few deep breaths here. I like to take a few in through the nose, out through the mouth. If that's helpful for you, you can do that. Or you can breathe any way that is helpful. And maybe on our exhale, we can sigh or make a vocalization, anything that we need to kind of let go. We can take as many of these breaths as we need. And then when we're ready, we can find our way back to our natural breath, whatever that looks like for us. Do know that when I offer breath cues throughout our time together, you can take them if they're helpful or disregard them if they're not. Throughout our practice today, if there are any postures that don't feel good, there's something else we'd like to do, please feel free to do that. Everything I do is an offering, just offering an option. But I think it's important for all of us to take agency in our practice and do whatever we need to do to feel as comfortable as we can feel. We might take a few moments to notice the breath, maybe noticing the air coming in through the nose or mouth, noticing the air releasing. And as part of that, we might notice maybe where we feel the breath in the body. Maybe on our inhale, we feel it in the heart space. Maybe we feel it in the belly or the shoulders. There are no wrong answers. We're allowing ourselves to witness what's happening in the body in this moment. We might begin to notice where else we feel the breath in the body, if anywhere else. If we like, we can close our eyes or have a soft gaze, whatever feels most comfortable. And we might release our awareness on the breath and start to notice the body itself. If there's anywhere in the body that maybe is calling out for a little attention or a little tenderness, we can make note of those areas so that we can be as kind to ourselves as possible today. And if we start to notice anywhere in the body that needs to stretch or move, we can offer that to ourselves as well. And we can do that throughout our practice. You are the expert in your body, so always defer to what you feel like you need to do in the moment. We might take a few moments to notice the areas of the body that are making contact with the mat, the chair, the bed, the floor. We might allow ourselves to be heavy through these areas, allowing ourselves to release maybe on the exhale, allowing ourselves to be held through these spaces, through that connection down to the earth, no matter how far beneath us it is today. Beautiful. When we're ready, we might start to bring in a little bit of movement to the body, maybe through the fingers, the toes, the head and neck. Taking any little movements or stretches that make us feel a little bit more comfortable, maybe even a little bit more connected. And then when we're ready, if we choose, if we are reclined, we might gently roll onto the right or left side. And slowly taking our time, we can press up to a seated position. And we can start to get ready for our first restorative posture. So today our first posture is going to be a supported forward fold, and there's a lot of different ways that we can enter this depending on our position, our mobility. So if we are on the bed or the mat, I'm going to slide off my bolster so that I can use it. If we have a bolster, we can use that. If we have blocks, we can use those. Let me grab my cork blocks here. And if we have blankets and pillows, we can use those as well. So the first thing we're going to do is put ourselves into a wide-legged position. If we like, we can wrap a blanket around our shoulders like a cape if we're a little chilly. We're going to bring the belly between the legs if that is something that feels comfortable, if we want to make a little bit more space around the hip joint. And if we are using our blocks or our bolster, we'll essentially be using them in the same way. So our first option would be to stack our blocks, or we can place our bolster on the highest position, kind of upright. And then from here, we would hinge at the hip, folding forward, and we're going to bring our forehead either to the top of our piled blocks or our bolster. And if we like, we can put a blanket on the blocks if we want a little bit more softness there. Resting the forehead against either one of these. We can hug them, wrapping our arms around them if that's comfortable. We can place the hands out to the sides. Anything that feels good. If we have the mobility, we might also place the bolster flat in front of us, hinging down and resting the body along the bolster. For me, I don't really have enough space with the belly and the bolster, so I'm going to bring it back upright. You can do the same thing with our pillows, our blankets. Basically, we just want to be able to pile them up until we can rest our forehead against them and kind of let the weight of the body rest against it. If we have a chair, couch, or table nearby, we can also use that in the same way, kind of resting forward against it. If we are in a chair, we might spread the legs apart as far as we can go and then do the same thing. If we have a bolster, if we have a second chair, we might grab the second chair, rest our forehead against that. We can rest our arms against our thighs and fold forward. So we have lots of options. If there's anything that anybody else needs, please go ahead, type it in the chat, and I'll give you more options. There are more. But once we find the position that works in our bodies, we'll take a moment. Again, we're going to notice the hip joint, and we're going to hinge from the hip joint rather than like the middle of the spine. Hinging forward, resting our head against the object. We might take a deep inhale and exhale, and maybe on our exhale, really allowing ourselves to rest against the support of our prop, allowing ourselves to be heavy, to be held, and doing our best maybe to let go a little bit more with each exhale. Remembering that in this moment, there's nothing else we need to do, nowhere else we need to be. Hi, Valor. We can allow ourselves to be as we are. If we find breath cues to be helpful, we might breathe in and out through the nose, maybe seeing if on our exhale we can extend it a little bit further than our inhale. This can help our nervous system start to move from that parasympathetic, from the sympathetic or the fight or flight into the parasympathetic or the rest and digest, commonly referred to as. But if breath cues don't feel good for you, then that's fine. Breathe however you need to breathe. And we'll be here for the next 2 minutes or so. When we're ready, we'll slowly return to the breath, noticing our inhale and exhale. We can place our hands against the props or against the floor and gently press up, coming out of our forward fold. And we'll begin to set up for our next posture. So our next posture tonight is going to be a supported twist. And again, we have a few different variations. So depending on, again, our mobility, what props we have available to us, we have a few different options. So the first option would be to take either our bolster or our bed pillows and place those coming down from the top of the mat or the top of the bed. And then we're going to sit right next to it. This is option one. So for this, if we have the mobility, we will be folding the body towards our bolster and coming down. It's a little difficult for me. Again, I run out of space because my belly hits my leg. You might not have that problem. So that is one option. Our second option is going to be to create a bit of a ramp so that we have space. So I'm going to do that by placing one block in the upright position and one in the low position. You can also stack a couple blankets or a couple throw pillows and then place our bed pillows against that to create a ramp. So these are two options for folks. I'll also offer a seated rather than a I don't like to say reclined because we're on our side, option in a moment. So if we're on the bed, we're on the mat, and we're going to be using this setup or the bolster against the floor. Same thing. Only thing that's different is the position of the bolster for us. So we're going to take our whatever hand is closest to the setup, and we're going to bring that behind or further from the camera. Our legs, we have a few different positions. We can have them kind of in deer leg, or we can have them stacked. I like to start in deer leg, and sometimes I stack them after I've come into position. Also, if you have a larger apron belly like I do, I actually pull the belly up onto my front leg, and that gives me a lot more space to come into my twist. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin to rotate the upper body towards our bolster. And we might be able to come into a position where the heart space faces it directly. But if that's not accessible to us, that's okay. We can come down onto our side as well. And I'll demo that, coming down onto the side. And then we can bring our front shoulder a little bit further to the front. And we can rest here. And again, we can reevaluate. Maybe now we want to stack the legs. And we'll take a few deep breaths. Again, really allowing ourselves to rest against the support of the bolster, of the pillows. Continuing to breathe. We can cover ourselves with a blanket here if we like as well. Beautiful. If we are seated in a chair, or if we find that neither of these setups are helpful for us, we'll scoot back in our chair, or we'll scoot back maybe against a wall or a couch, if we can. And we're going to come into this butterfly position if we're seated in a chair where our legs will be down on the ground. And as we lean back, we're going to go ahead and begin to rotate. So I'm going to take my left hand, place it against the inner line of the left leg. Right arm is going to go against the wall. If I have space behind me, I might even put it behind me. And then I'm going to rotate from the base of the spine over towards the right side, maybe turning my chin as well. And I'm going to do what I can to get as comfortable as I can here, because we're going to hold this posture for about 3 more minutes. So whichever variation suits us is the one that we can stay in. If you don't find any of these comfortable, again, please go ahead and type it in the chat, and we'll come up with something that does work for you. And once I find the position that works for me, I usually, again, might take a few deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Releasing, relaxing, letting go. And then find my natural breath. Beautiful. If we're on the mat or in the bed, we might slowly return to the breath. And to exit, we can place our hands against the mat or the props and gently taking our time, begin to press up. From here, we have two options. We can either gently roll onto the opposite side, leaving our props where they are, or it might be more accessible for you to set up the props on the opposite side of the mat. So if that's the case, we can lay our bolster on the opposite side or move our props, the rest of our props. And then we'll do the same thing on this side. So again, bringing the legs against the base of our bolster or pillows. We can place our hand down behind the bolster, bring the belly on to the lap if that's helpful. Rotate the upper body in the direction of our bolster, and then come down as carefully as we can. We can rest our hands wherever feels comfortable. Once we're in position, we might even hug the bolster through the little hole in the blocks or props if you have that available to you. And again, we can take a few deep breaths, releasing, relaxing into the props. If we're seated, we'll gently begin to untwist, coming back through center, and then we'll repeat on the opposite side. So bringing the left hand either nearest the wall or the back of the chair or behind the bum, and then rotating from the base of the spine, opening the shoulders towards the left side this time. And once we find a position that's comfortable, we might lean against the back of the chair or the wall. And we'll stay here. And we'll be here for about 5 more minutes. No matter what position we're in, something that might be helpful is a little visualization that can help us with kind of consciously releasing muscles. So we might envision on our inhale air rushing to those spaces in the back and the spine, in the hips that feel tight. And then on our exhale, or kind of filling those areas with air on the inhale. And then on the exhale, imagining that air draining away, taking tension, taking stress, leaving smooth, relaxed muscle fiber in its wake. body will slowly return to the breath. Noticing the inhale and the exhale. We can again place the hands against the mat or props and gently begin to press upward. If we're in our chair, we can release, gently floating forward. And we can take whatever movement feels good here. For our next posture, we're going to be coming into Supta Baddha Konasana, or Reclined Baddha Konasana. And again, many options. We might be able to use our props exactly as they are, either the bolster lying flat or pillows flat on the ground in this kind of long ways position. Or we can also use the ramp, especially if we don't like being fully reclined. I would also recommend ramping our pillows or bolster if we have a hard time with back bends, particularly in the low back along the lumbar. So the low back kind of right above the bum. Then I would recommend this setup. If we have blankets available to us, we might want to grab a couple of those. One maybe to keep us warm, and also one maybe to support our knees. Or if we have blocks, let me grab a couple of these. So whether we're in the chair or on the mat or in the bed, we're going to take one of our blankets maybe and roll it into kind of a longish sausage or cylinder type shape. So if we're going to be seated in the chair, we might take this and wrap it around the neck to support us as we lean back in our chair. And then I'll give us the positions for the lower half of the body shortly. But if we are in our bed or on our mat, we might take this after we bring our bum to the base of our pillows or bolster and bring it across the mat right about where our knees are. And this is going to give us a little support under the knees. We might double up the ends if we start to feel a little bit of pulling through the inner line of the legs as we bring the soles of the feet together, knees apart for our butterfly pose or a diamond, depending on what you're familiar with. And then we might take a second blanket for warmth to kind of place over us. I like to take the bottom and kind of tuck it around the feet, and then take these ends and place them under the knees. And this just helps us hold the soles of the feet together. Also, it's a little extra cushion for the knees. And we can pull the blanket up as we recline back against our bolster or pillows. So again, we might be on a ramp. We might have the bolster directly on the floor. Whatever works. Or our pillows. For our hands, we can either have them against the body. We can have them spread out into more of a T shape. We can have them right next to us. If you are like me and actually have a hard time staying still sometimes, this kind of buzzing that can happen in the body, I actually like to take my hands and place them palms down under my bum. That little additional bit of weight helps ground me and helps me kind of calm down a little bit. So that might be helpful for you, but you don't have to do that. You can do whatever feels best. And this might be our reclined bound angle. If we are in our chair, if we're in something like a couch where we have more space, we could put maybe a bolster or a chair behind us, in between us and the chair. Or we can just find a comfortable position to rest against the chair, maybe covering the lower half of the body. If we have a second chair or a table in front of us, we might place the soles of the feet together, knees apart on that platform, essentially coming into a very similar position from seated. We could also rest the soles of the feet, the sides of the feet against the floor so that the soles are pointed towards each other. They don't have to be touching, they could be further apart. Or we could even place the feet on a blanket or a couple of pillows so that they're raised up, maybe not equal height with the hips, maybe a little bit lower, but that might be helpful too. But either way, if we're seated, we'll find our comfortable position. Our hands might be against the body. They might be resting on the sides or on the arms of the chair if that's what we have. And once we find our position again, maybe taking a few breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, releasing with a sigh, resting against the support of the props, the chair, the bed, the floor. Finding our natural breath. Maybe slightly extending the exhale. Wherever we are, maybe seeing if we can release a little bit of tension through the heart space, through the shoulders, wherever we notice that tightness. Maybe on our exhale, seeing if we can invite softness, release. And we'll be here for the next 5 minutes or so. When we're ready, we'll come back to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. In a few moments, we'll be transitioning into our final resting pose for our meditation. And I have a lot of options. So if you feel very comfortable where you are, you can stay here. If you'd rather, you might extend the legs out, coming into a supported Shavasana. If the blanket under the knees doesn't feel comfortable enough, we can gently roll off to the right or left side. Remove the bolster from behind us and gently slide those under the knee. Slide the bolster under the knees. If we'd rather, we can roll off the props and come into any other posture that feels comfortable for us. Again, we have Shavasana, which would be lying flat on the mat with a bolster or blanket or pillow under the knees, maybe covering ourselves with a blanket. If we have an eye pillow, we might place that over the eyes. If we like, we can also come into another variation of Shavasana called five-pointed star or pentagram, where we spread the arms out into a T shape and spread the legs out into a wide-legged position, taking all the space we need. Again, we can be covered with a blanket. If we are seated, we might use our rolled blanket around the neck. Continued. We can stretch the legs out into a straight position or with the soles of the feet against the floor. We can move to a couch or bed if we'd rather, to be reclined. There really are no wrong answers here. The idea is to find a position that is comfortable enough that we can relax and release and let go. And don't worry about falling asleep, because if you need the rest, you should take it. The video will shut down when I'm done, so you don't have to worry about turning that off. But once we've found the position that works for us, we might take, again, a few deep breaths. Maybe again, extending the exhale. And tonight we have a grounding meditation. I know for me, when I have a rough day, a rough week, when I just feel overwhelmed by everything that's happening everywhere, I tend to feel untethered. Like I'm running off in 1,000 different directions. And I know for me, grounding is really helpful for that. So hopefully we've all had time to find a position that works for us. And from whatever position we're in, we might start to notice, again, those places of the body that are making contact with the mat, the bed, the chair, the props. Allowing ourselves to rest against the support of those objects. Allowing ourselves to be heavy. Seeing if we can let go of tension in the body and really, truly let ourselves be held. Not just by the props, not just by the floor beneath them, but by the earth itself. When we might feel scattered, when we might feel separated or alone, we can come back to the earth because it's what connects us to everyone. It connects us to the people we care about, to the people who care about us. To our families, to our chosen families. No matter how far apart we are tonight, we are all resting against the same earth. And the earth connects us through more than just distance, but also through time. It connects us to our ancestors. It connects us to the original stewards of the land. It connects us to the people who founded our spiritual beliefs. Who helped form and shape and create the ideologies that we use to make decisions in our lives. And these people, these ideas, they create a bedrock. Something on which we can grow, something on which we can build, something on which we can rest. And tonight, in this moment, I invite you to take rest, knowing that you're supported, not just by the earth, but by everything it connects us to. And we'll be here for the next 4 minutes or so, resting in this space, taking what we need, And from wherever we are, if we like, we can slowly begin to come back to the breath. Noticing the inhale and exhale. If we're comfortable where we are, we can stay here. But if we'd rather, we can start to bring a bit of movement into the body, maybe gently moving the head from side to side or up and down. We might bring movement into the fingers, the toes. And we might gently begin to roll onto the right or left side if we would like to get up. Thank you all so much. If we like, we can bring the hands together at heart center. We can place them anywhere against the body that feels good. And we might take 3 breaths together in a way that feels comfortable. We might take a moment to thank ourselves for making space tonight for rest. And I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. It really does mean the world.